Hello to everybody, my name is Stefano, and welcome to this episode of the Think and Analyze podcast. Okay, so as I announced in the previous introduction, today we will cover the following topic. Does it make sense to complain about things? First of all, I believe we should define what we mean with complain. As a matter of fact, too many times people discuss or even argue about something when in reality they don't even mean the same concept. In fact, a definition can be dramatically influenced by the simple addition or removal of some words. On the internet, to define what we are dealing with, we find that to complain means to express dissatisfaction or annoyance about something. So, to complain means to express dissatisfaction for something, regardless of whether that something is actually negative and important or trivial. Therefore, and I want to stress about this right in the beginning, there's a huge difference between just talking about something negative and complaining about that. And I want to repeat that. Complaining does not necessarily mean that what we are complaining about is actually negative. Complaining means only that we are expressing dissatisfaction, regardless, as I said, of what actually happened. For example, I could say, my job is kinda tiring, I would like to have another one, or I don't like my job. Every time I get home, I am tired. I do not deserve this. Now, I wouldn't say that the former sentence is a complaint. I would say it's simple, it's just a statement. Instead, the latter is actually a complaint because I put some words, or actually, the words I said put some stress onto the fact that I am expressing dissatisfaction. In addition, the meaning could be even more bent by using tonality and facial expression to stress about how the person feels instead of the objective facts. Okay, so now that we define complaining, we discover that the answer to the question also depends on what we mean with making sense. As a matter of fact, the answer will be yes, in the sense that complaining is justifiable. It may relieve stress momentarily, and generally speaking, if something bad happens, you want to let the world know that it was unjust and not your fault. To put in other words, we could say that the answer is if something bad happens, of course it makes sense to complain. Would you be happy instead? On the other hand, on a deeper analysis, we could also say no as a response, because complaining does not change the situation we're in. To put in other words once again, we could say that complaining does not make sense because it is not aimed at doing something concretely, apart from, as I just said, feel maybe a little bit better. Instead, time should be used in other productive ways. I could look for a total solution of a problem, or if it doesn't exist, I might even look for something less bad. Even that will be a start, even that will be an improvement. Moreover, complaining puts the blame on other people. However, we often add some degree of responsibility in relation to what happens to us. I believe the rest is pure chance. Some people would call it destiny or fate. And since you don't usually complain for something that's your fault, you are complaining about that percentage that you don't control, about those things that happen totally randomly. So, if you want to complain, go do that. You will only make yourself a more negative person. Because I believe that it is absurd to complain about something random. It's like you complain about not winning the lottery. You know that the likelihood of winning the lottery is low, so you are not going to complain if you don't win. Okay, in that case, we are talking about really low probability, and so this observation is quite maybe a bit of a stretch. Okay, but generally, I believe that even if you know that something could go 50-50, so one way or another, I believe I think is it's actually. It makes sense to not complain because you knew that there was some probability that a specific thing went one way or another. You are not going to complain because it didn't went how you want. Um, Yeah, because it's just random. We are talking about random things. I feel that that is not that does not make sense at all. Also, complaining does bring negative vibes. Maybe even this is a sort of less important thing, but I believe that if it is unnecessary, I wouldn't complain because I genuinely like to bring positivity into people's lives. I don't want to be I don't know, sort of considered by the by other people that as a negative person. I don't want to be considered as a negative person. I want to bring positivity into other people. I want to bring joy, perhaps. And also, there's another effect of complaining, but this happens if you do it too often, I guess. I would say that you convince yourself, slowly but steadily, that it is never your fault. You don't necessarily, as a matter of fact, get convinced about something only because someone else repeats to you constantly the same thing. You know that principle. Well, when we talk about, for example, self-confidence, it is always said, well, people usually say that if your parents always told you that you are not good enough, you tend to believe that when you are older. And that is an example of other people influencing a specific individual. But I believe that even if you say to yourself, if you say something to yourself all the time, you start to believe that thing. You also say, well, you often hear actually when people talk about things, I believe, I say it quite, well, quite often now, but it happens that I say this when you are talking with someone and you say, "I'm saying this more to convince myself rather than to convince you." I believe that that highlights how this mechanism operates even with one single person talking to themselves. And so you could start consciously, but then turn into an unconscious mental state, and you do not want to do that. Oftentimes, when we are dealing with something strange, weird, you say, how's that possible that the person does not even realize that they're doing this thing, this specific thing? But then you realize that it started as a conscious thing, um, but with time, it went too automatic. It became too automatic, and thus it became unconscious. And that's, I believe that that is when you want to really stop and think, okay, why am I doing this? Because when things turn sort of automatic and conscious, they become more dangerous if they are not dealt properly. Because you, unless you stop and think about yourself, you do not realize what you're doing until maybe it's too late and you become involved in something too negative, in something really actually bad. Yeah, that puts you in a bad position. And also, if you complain too often, relating this to the fact that people view you as a negative person, you could come across as someone to stay away from, since you are clearly stating and stressing that only bad things happen to you. And you don't want to do that. As a matter of fact, I believe that negative things happen to everybody. But if someone puts the stress on them and is constantly saying, "This happened to me, look at myself, this happened to me, I'm miserable," and all those kind of things, people say, "Okay, I will stay away from you." Even though maybe the same people that say this are dealing with the same things. It's just that if you if you give importance to negative things by talking about them, by always talking about them, uh, mm, it's actually it's like okay, so you are giving importance to those negative things and not to the positive ones. That is not something healthy. Yeah, that is not something healthy. I want to stress this. I believe that this sentence uh, express at best the meaning of this concept. Also, my personal perspective on complaining, and here's something I noticed while I make small talk with people. If I don't know what to say next, if I don't know how to say, I don't know another maybe open-ended question to keep on the conversation, to keep going with the conversation, I noticed that if you complain about something, you say something, and the conversation can go on. It's like a filler which is, maybe not so positive, but it is a filler. It is something, okay? At least it's something. Now, I don't know if what I'm saying is a bit of a stretch, but if I just complain and a conversation can go on, maybe it's because complaining is easy and it does not require careful thought. And for this reason, when we are talking about complaining, maybe we could relate what I just said with the fact that, yes, complaining is easy, and thus you should not do that because if it isn't, it means you are not actually doing something hard and you are not working hard in order to change the situation. You are just talking in order to, well, talk. But I'm still uncertain about relating this situation to the general topic of complaining. However, I do think that something more deep could be found if we analyzed properly this. But I don't know, and anyway, I don't want to do that right now. Now, to summarize, I believe these points clarify that complaining is not mentally healthy because it gets you in the wrong mindset. However, I also believe that it is way too extreme to say, okay, from now on I will never complain. We are not totally rational creatures that when we understand one thing, we are not going to do that never again. That's not how it works. What I mean with this is that more than the act itself, it is more important to understand the effects of complaining on ourselves and others. Once we are aware of this, we will be more conscious about ourselves. And if once in a while we complain, we can like look at the situation more objectively and understand if we fell in that sort of trap of the wrong mindset. If not, that's perfect. Nothing important or kinda dangerous happened. If you know that complaining is not healthy, but once in a while you complain about something, you know that you didn't do something positive, but you also know that it does not change who you are. I mean, if you still know that complaining is not the right thing to do, generally speaking, it's still okay. That's what I want to say. One last thing, I believe that if you want to express our disappointment about something to someone, instead of complaining, we could just say what happened and maybe express our feeling. But it's always crucial beforehand to think, is this something I need to ask help for and thus I need to express what I feel? Or would I do that just because of anger or entitlement? That is the question uh, you want always to ask yourself before you complain, let's put it like that, to someone. Am I doing this for help because I actually need help? Or am I doing this because I just want to complain? I just want people to give me attention. Okay, so that is it. I hope you guys gained something. Sorry, I hope you guys gained something from this episode. If you think I should have mentioned something else, or if you don't agree with one thing I said, let me know in the comments below. I will be glad to answer to those comments. With that said, see you guys.